Welcome inside this edition of Big Ten Today, presented by Gatorade. Rick Pizzo, Jake Butt. Just 2 Saturdays remain in the regular season. We're just over 2 weeks away from hearing from the College Football Playoff Committee to find out which 12 teams will play for the national championship.
It's championship football season right now. And I mean, I think back to my time as a player, I almost get butterflies because everything gets turned up. The intensity gets turned up. And when you're a little kid and you grow up, you dream of being a great player, but you really dream of competing for championships. This weekend is effectively a championship weekend for the coaches and the teams. They got to treat it like a mock playoff play-in game.
2 teams playing like champions right now will meet on Saturday in Eugene. It is our big story. USC has done its part over the past month, continuing to climb up the rankings, getting some respect from the CFP committee. Now they have a chance to post their best win of the year. As for Oregon, the Ducks are certainly 2 wins away from a spot in the playoff. Outside shot to get one of those byes. Right now, though, Dan Lanning and company only worried about all that Trojan talent.
Looking at, what USC does, obviously Maiava Lemon is as good as they come. Jacoby Lane does a great job outside. I think this is one of the best receiving corps we've seen since we've been here. And their quarterback's playing really, really high level as well. And they have schemes that challenge you. They do a good job moving the guys around, making it tough to be able to figure out where they're at. We're playing an offense that throws for 300 and rushes for 200, so it all matters, right? But this will still be a physical football game, right? And I think physical football teams win. That's certainly going to matter in this game, but they challenge you in all ways with what they're able to do offensively.
Dan Lanning, a head coach with a defense-first background, worried about that USC offense, one of the best units in the country. So, Jake, let's start there. When USC has the ball, what does Lincoln Riley want to see from his Trojan offense, and how does Dan Lanning and this defense with Tosh Lupoy, who has done a phenomenal job, fight off that USC offense?
Well, Dan just kind of laid it out perfectly. USC has been balanced. They've been excellent running the ball, throwing the ball. It's one of the more dominant offenses in college football. I think that's a big reason the Trojans have taken a step as a program. But to me, I'm looking at the passing game with Maiava, with Lemon, with Lane, even mix in McCree and the USC tight ends. Right now, Oregon has the #1 ranked passing defense in college football. And you'd say that is good because it is good. But you start to peel back the layers a little bit and look at the opponents Oregon has faced this year. Rutgers is 22nd in passing offense. That's the best passing offense they've faced. Indiana, number 38. Oregon State, number 74. None of their other opponents are inside the top 100 in passing offense.
That's shocking.
Shocking. And USC is the 10th best passing offense, as if you need statistics to understand how dangerous they are. That is the big matchup here. Brandon Finney Jr. is a true freshman, number 4 for Oregon. I think he's playing like an All-American, not a freshman All-American, like a true All-American. Remember, he had that key pick 6 against Indiana. I cannot wait to see what they do with Brandon Finney Jr. against Maiava Lemon and Jacoby Lane. That secondary needs to play their best game of the season.
I'm glad you bring up Maiava Lemon because he's a guy, and whether you want to say it's the West Coast bias or whatever it may be, who is going to play on Sundays. He has unbelievable skills, and yet outside of coaches and opposing defenses, I don't think he gets the national respect that he deserves.
Any coach that watches the film, they say this guy's outstanding. I mean, I think he's a first-round pick. I have a Blitnikoff vote, and he was one of my finalists. I mean, that guy is just absolutely special. And then, Rick, even to go a step further now, red zone is going to be a big piece of this game. You need touchdowns, not field goals. And with a guy like Lemon, his contested catch ability is absolutely outstanding. He made some big catches in that Iowa game. I got a few more numbers for you here. I was shocked to look at this. USC is a top 10 red zone scoring offense, okay? They're top 25 in red zone touchdown percentage. That is really good. Oregon's defense, they are 132nd in red zone defense in the FBS, 126th in touchdown percentage. Now, the key is they've only allowed 13 touchdowns.
So they're not letting the opposition get into the red zone very often.
But down there, you say, hey, their teams have been able to score touchdowns. So this game is going to be, these are 2 great teams. It's going to be competitive, but it's in the margins that'll decide.
Well, and USC knows it, right? When you are on the road playing a top 10 team, you can't settle for 3 if 7 is an option. That's the only way you get things done offensively. Now, on the flip side, I've been really impressed by the Oregon offense, not just Dante Moore, who continues to make plays, and doing so without wide receivers. They are just absolutely obliterated in terms of injuries on the outside skill position. Sadiq also missed some time. So, Jake, what do? They go to the run against Iowa, a team that you're not supposed to be able to run on in Kinnick, and they ran right between the tackles and crushed the Hawkeyes. I would not be surprised at all if the offensive game plan is to do that and wear down this USC defense and then take your shots when the Trojans start sneaking 7-8 guys in the box.
I'm with you, Rick. That's the best antidote. When you're facing an explosive offense that you know can put up points and gash you with chunk plays, you just want to run the ball and control the clock. And then the home field advantage becomes even more important because you're just in complete control of the game. And there's a reason Oregon is a Joe Moore Award semifinalist offensive line. They've been dominant on the ground. They've been great in pass protection. And you look at where USC struggled this year. What did Illinois do? Illinois just ran right into the teeth of the Trojan defense. They couldn't stop it. What did Notre Dame do? The exact same thing. So to your point, Rick, that's going to be the game plan here, just from a strength standpoint, but from a health standpoint, Oregon is going to run right at the Trojans and dare them to stop it.
Whittington, Davison, Hill. You have to throw Dante Moore in there because when he needs to, he can certainly tuck it and run it, would rather throw it. But I think that run game against this USC defense, and I think we'll know fairly early, right? We were shocked to see early that Oregon was able to run on Iowa. I think we know early whether this USC defense physically is going to be able to match up with this Oregon offensive line and running backs.
No doubt. And, you know, I'd point to the Iowa game, though, and say Iowa was running and gashing them in the first half. And the Trojans were able to make some adjustments and respond. But it's not going to work against Oregon. Oregon is a more complete offense than the Hawkeyes right now. But I would point to, you know, Michigan is a dominant rushing team. But the Trojans were able to jump out to a lead on them and force Michigan to have to throw the ball. You know, so if you're USC, I almost wonder, if you win the coin toss, do you take the ball? Do you try to jump out to a lead on Oregon?
I think Lincoln Riley takes the ball.
I think so too. I mean, that's one of their strengths here. So there's just so many fun matchups to explore here, and it is a playoff game effectively.
You mentioned a couple of those big USC wins. The difference from those games and this game, those games were in LA.
Right.
This one is in Eugene, and you know the crowd there will be absolutely riled up, fired up. They know how much is at stake. It's USC, Oregon, and it's coming up 3:30 Eastern on Saturday. Meanwhile, a football triple header kicks off here on the Big Ten Network with Minnesota against Northwestern at Wrigley Field. Michigan looks to keep its playoff hopes alive against Maryland. Illinois, Wisconsin under the lights at Camp Randall. All starts with countdown to kickoff 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. That is this Saturday on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Jake, let's focus on the middle of those three games because Michigan's still also in the college football playoff conversation. Listen, it's very simple for the Wolverines. If you want to have any chance, you got to beat Maryland this weekend, and you have the game next week, which would be the best win in college football by any team this season if Michigan is able to once again knock off Ohio State. But that game only means something if Michigan takes care of business on Saturday in College Park.
Yeah, and I think, so we're calling the game, our crew's calling the game, and I asked Sharon Moore, I said, Coach, do you think you've played 60 minutes of three-phase, clean, complete football yet this season? And he said no, he does not think that they've played 60 minutes of their best football, and that includes special teams. I do want to make a quick point on special teams. They're playing Maryland this weekend, but Michigan's judged against will you beat Ohio State next week. How they upset Ohio State in 2024 was special teams. Dominic Zavada was 2 for 2 in field goals. Ohio State was 1 for 3. Right now, Michigan's special teams is not a plus. It's been a net negative for them. So special teams will be a major point to watch this weekend against the Terps. But then once you get into the matchup, you know, it's another great opportunity because Maryland's defense is far different from Northwestern. Northwestern, 4 down front, quarters coverage, they line up and play you. Maryland, they're built on chaos, different fronts, pressure packages, coverages, and they force turnovers. Number 2 in the FBS in interceptions.
They take a lot of chances, especially on the back end.
And they're opportunistic. I mean, they take advantage of when the opportunity presents themselves. 18 interceptions on the season. That's 2 in the FBS. Michigan with Bryce Underwood, I thought he played his best game of the season last year against Northwestern. But then the turnover showed up, and you have to factor that into this equation. A game against Maryland, I'll give you the quote that Sharon Moore said. He said, you don't want to coach the wild horse rider out of the cowboy. basically saying that Bryce Underwood has some real playmaking ability. He does take some risks, but he's got the potential to make some amazing throws. That third down throw to Andrew Marsh, that's a wild horse rider throw, but some of the interceptions were also wild horse riders. It's just going to be a element for Bryce to juggle against a Terps secondary that turns you over, but, want to be content wild horse rider.
Hearing that quote, I think of Sharon, who has taken to wearing the mechanics shirt with his name stenciled on the left-hand side since they've been on this win streak. And maybe next time we hear from Bryce, he's wearing the cowboy hat. Does have to do a better job in terms of protecting the football. And Michigan's defense will be tested. Listen, I don't think there's any doubt. Mike Loxley knows, what do you have to lose at this point, right? So with Malik Washington, a really talented freshman quarterback, do you just continually challenge Michigan on the outside? Because I think looking at what you have and what Michigan has, you're not going to be able to pound the rock over and over again offensively.
No, and you have to. And Michigan, the big strength that they have in this game is in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Maryland has really struggled to run the ball all season, and now you're facing a dominant Michigan front. I don't expect a sudden change that the Terps are going to be able to gash them. So then it comes a game that's out on the perimeter. Perimeter tackling and blocking is going to be a big piece of this. The Terps like to use quick screens and RPOs. Who wins at the point of attack out of there? Can they stay on schedule? And the big piece of this is a fun matchup of two great freshman quarterbacks. Malik Washington is a stud quarterback. But you look at the PFF ranks here, there's a big difference when he's kept clean versus when he's pressured. When he's kept clean, these are PFF rankings, he is 54th in the FBS. Okay, when he's not blitzed, he's the 32nd best quarterback in the FBS. Under pressure, that drops to the 122nd quarterback, and when he's blitzed, the 126th quarterback. So there is the game. We know the Terps are going to throw the ball on the outside, but the offensive line has to keep him clean.
This is also something he can do. Broken plays, non-designed quarterback runs. And as you know, in the games that Michigan has lost last couple of years, when they've been favored, it's because the quarterback on broken plays has been able to get outside and contain and come up with a lot of big plays. That's exactly what Maryland needs this weekend from Malik Washington if they have any chance to knock off the Wolverines and end Michigan's hopes to get to the college football playoff. Coming up tonight, catch a triple header of hoops featuring Indiana, Ohio State, and USC all in action. Our coverage begins at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Before we take you to Bloomington later this evening, we take you there right now. Head coach Darian DeVries, kind enough to join us for today's big interview. Coach, you're 4 games in, you're unbeaten. Life is always good when you're unbeaten. I'm curious as to how the reality of coaching at Indiana, one of the most coveted jobs in the history of college basketball, has compared to what your expectations were before you coached game 1.
Yeah, it's been great. The fan base has been really welcoming, and I know my family and we've really enjoyed it, and our staff and our team has enjoyed the process of getting this season started and looking forward to what lies ahead.
I know a lot of folks from the outside probably think it gets really crazy when you start. But for you, moving from one program to another, moving your family, getting everything ready in the preseason, was it almost like when the ball tipped off, life got easier because that's what you're used to doing in your regular cadence?
Yeah, I think once the school starts and regular practice and you're back in the gym and got a whistle in your hands, that's when everything feels normal again. So it's it was great to get the season started, and now it's coaching games and getting ready for the next ones.
Coach, I know it's a small sample size still at this point, but from what you've seen, what would you identify as the strengths of this particular group?
I think the number one thing is it's a really unselfish group. We share the ball very well. I think for a group that hasn't been together very long, they really complement each other at both ends of the floor. I think there's a connectivity there that can be a challenge when you have a group like this that they've never played together, and they've figured that stuff out pretty quickly.
How do you approach that as a staff, trying to build that connectivity and that chemistry that can be elusive, as you mentioned, when guys haven't really played much together?
I think the biggest thing is just the guys that are here. They're all about just trying to win games, and they've really embraced that. I like the mindset that they've approached the day-to-day with, and it's really shown up on the game floor.
Obviously, it showed up in a big way in that Marquette game. How much can a win like that and a performance like that build the confidence that every coach is looking for early in the year?
Yeah, I think early in the year, you're always, trying to figure out, who are we? What are our strengths, weaknesses as you start playing games? It's one thing to, see it on the practice floor. It's another thing to carry it out on the game floor. And, when you get an early season win against a traditionally really good Marquette program, I think it gives you a little bit of confidence in your team and what they're doing, and the way the game played out too. Just the way we shared the ball, moved the ball, and shot it. That certainly was one of those early season games that can propel you. It's still early, and then when we're improving every day. But I like the direction that the team is headed so far.
Obviously, some teaching moments as well. Second half of that Incarnate Word game probably got a little bit closer than we were expecting, certainly closer than you would have liked. What do you teach after a game like that? And it's obviously a little easier to send whatever message you're trying to send because you did ultimately get the win.
I think the biggest thing is, you're kind of in control of a game. Is just how fast a game, can flip if you don't continue to do the things that have gotten you to that point during the course of a game. I also thought it was one of those games too where we didn't shoot it very well, and you got to still find a way to win the game. And I thought our guys did a good job of that. There aren't a lot of nights where we're going to shoot it that poorly, especially with the type of shots we got. So I thought there was also some good, things to take away from it, even in a night where maybe you didn't have your best.
As we look at some of the individuals on this team, Lamar Wilkerson right now, your leading scorer, what makes his offensive game specifically so effective?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with him is he's just got the utmost confidence in his ability to score and specifically shoot it. He's got just a positive energy about him every day anyway. But, for him on the game floor, he's just one of those guys that can change a game in just a few possessions, and he can shoot it from really about anywhere. And he thinks wherever he lets it go from, he thinks it's going in.
Tucker is your second leading scorer and your leading rebounder. We know he can shoot, but how important will it be for him to clean up on the glass as well as he shoots it?
Yeah, I think for our whole team, just the rebounding aspect, we're not overly big, but, if we can have the right mindset, I think we can go do that. He's certainly going to be one of those guys that's going to have to rebound for us. And he's done a nice job here early in the season, collecting some of those defensive rebounds to get us going, into our transition game.
What kind of things can you do, whether they're strategy-wise or specific roster-wise, to kind of offset the fact that in a lot of situations, certainly when you get into Big Ten play, you're going to be somewhat undersized on the glass and specifically on that offensive glass?
I think for us, it's just a mindset. We're going to have to make connection with bodies and make sure that we have some physicality to the rebounding component of the game. And, if you do that, you can certainly be a good rebounding team. And it's just creating those habits and that mindset every day. And our guys are getting better. You can see it in our practices, and it's starting to show up on some of the game tape as well. But that's something that's going to be a priority for us throughout the year.
Rest of your November sees Lindenwood tonight, then you have K-State and Bethune-Cookman. I mean, you'll be certainly favored in all of those games. I looked at December. You have the start of Big Ten play, plus you have Louisville and Indianapolis and Kentucky at Rupp. I'm not sure there's a lot of teams in the country that are going to have a tougher December schedule. What will show you over the course of the next couple of weeks that your team is ready to step into that kind of opposition?
The biggest thing for us is just continuing to make sure we're getting better every day. And tonight is another opportunity to do that, on game night, is to come out and make sure we're doing the things we need to do and ultimately to get ready for the start of conference play. So that's been our mindset. We'll continue to do that. And we're looking forward to, these next couple of weeks of, seeing what type of strides we can take.
Coach, let's finish here. We're a week away from Thanksgiving Day. I'm curious, with all that's happened in your life over the last couple of months or so, what are you most thankful for?
Yeah, I think for all of us, you're just incredibly grateful for your family and friends, and that's something that we always look forward to. For our Thanksgiving this year, we get to have the team over for Thanksgiving meal, so that'll be a fun time as well. But certainly thankful for everything that we've been blessed with.
How much will you be involved in the cooking for that meal?
I think very minimal, and I think that's good for everyone.
No food poisoning. Everybody's going to be happy with what gets served on Thanksgiving. Coach, I think you got other things to worry about over the course of that week. Darian DeVries, head coach of Indiana, looking to start 5-0 with a win over Lindenwood tonight. Game you can see right here on the Big Ten Network. Coach, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now it's USC, Oregon. Big Ten title game implications, college football playoff implications on the line. We focus on the quarterbacks set to face off in this game, starting with the aforementioned Jayden Maiava. I love what Lincoln Riley has done lately, utilizing Maiava in the run game as well. But he's a pass-first quarterback, and as great as Lincoln Riley is as a play caller, Jake, it comes down to players making plays, and Maiava has one terrific wide receiver who can help him do exactly that.
Rick, you said it perfectly there. In these big games, you can call a great play, but Oregon's going to have great plays defensively. That's when it becomes about players. And with Maiava, his baseline arm talent is what absolutely stands out. Can you throw the ball into tight windows in man coverage? Oh, factor in, you're going to have to do it on the run in inclement conditions. Look at this window. Iowa's in great man coverage, but that guy, Makai Lemon, is one of the best in the business. A beautiful throw there by Jayden Maiava to be able to move the chains. This one's going to be zone coverage. That was man, this one's zone. Once again, Iowa is in great position, but Maiava layers this ball in, gives his receiver a chance to go up and effectively get a rebound. There it is. Players making plays. The quarterback and wide receiver have a great relationship, and then down in the red zone, everything gets turned up a notch. It especially becomes about players down here. Again, Iowa in perfect coverage. They have him double teamed, but Maiava layers a beautiful throw in there. Once again, a jump ball for Lemon to go up and make the play. A heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching touchdown for the Iowa defense. That's what this guy does in the big moments, Rick.
Jayden Maiava did not have his best game against Iowa in lousy conditions, but he has made some phenomenal throws. And I take you back to the other quarterback in Dante Moore. You could say he didn't have his best game when the Ducks knocked off the Hawkeyes, but he made a monster throw late in that game. And that seems to be in his DNA, Jake. When the chips are down and the Ducks need him to make the best play, it doesn't matter what the rest of the game has been. Moore always seems to step up in those moments.
Absolutely. This is going to be such a fun quarterback duel between these two guys. And Dante Moore did it against Iowa. He did it earlier in the season against Penn State. Operationally, he's just one of the best quarterbacks in college football. And this is just great quarterback play. 3 deep coverage. He's going to have Kenyon Sadiq running down the seam. The big key is his eyes have to hold that middle safety just enough so he can rip this seam. You see the eyes holding that middle safety, and then there the ball is on a frozen rope right down the seam to, in my opinion, the best tight end in college football, Kenyon Sadiq. How about this? Once again, Penn State has a great play called. It's 3rd down. The rush gets there, but Dante Moore on the run, throwing across his body, finds, guess who? Kenyon Sadiq, a big chunk explosive play, ability to move the chains on the run. Dante Moore is just one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football, and this might be the throw of the year. Iowa is playing their safety in the middle of the hashes, saying, no way in these conditions with your injuries at wide receiver are you throwing it outside the numbers. He couldn't have hand-delivered a better pass here, Rick, to his wide receiver, Malik Benson. That is the throw of the year in a gotta-have-it situation to keep Oregon's playoff hopes alive. Going to need more of that this weekend for Dante Moore.
I think it's very fair to say it doesn't always just come down to the quarterback. These guys are terrific. The Oregon defense has been terrific. The USC defense has been opportunistic. But I have a feeling on Saturday, inside Autzen, whichever quarterback plays better is going to lead their team to victory, and 1 win away then from a spot in the college football playoff field of 12. Latest college football playoff bracket sees 3 teams from the Big Ten inside the field of 12, including the top 2 overall seeds in Ohio State and Indiana. Oregon currently number 7, which means the Ducks would host an opening round game. USC, Michigan, and Illinois also among this week's top 25. Dave Revson has more.
Pleased to be joined now by Bruce Feldman. You can see him on Fox Sports. You can listen to him on the Audible podcast. You can read his work on The Athletic, and now you can hear him here on the Big Ten Network as well. Bruce, let's start with the college football playoff. I'm interested in getting your take on the top two Big Ten teams. Let's start with Ohio State. They've been number one for the entire time we've had the college football playoff rankings this year. They've been number one in the AP poll for much of the year. Are they the clear-cut best team in the country, in your opinion?
I think they are. If you ask me, at some point I felt like Indiana was more deserving of the top spot because they did have a really impressive win going out to Autzen and beating the Ducks, especially the way they did it. You know, sacked Dante Moore 6 times, had the good comeback to close it out, held them to 1 touchdown. But I think you watch week in and week out on both sides of the ball. You know, it's splitting hairs because we think they're going to play each other anyway. But I do think those have been the two most impressive teams in the country. And if you ask me who I think is the best, I would say Ohio State.
Yeah, they haven't even trailed in the second half. Indiana has played a more difficult conference schedule. I think it's inarguable, kind of to your point. What about the Hoosiers? I think Indiana fans look at this and they say, can this team win a national championship? Like, could this actually happen? You're talking about splitting hairs with the number one team in the country. Do you think they could run through this incredible gauntlet that they'd have to go through and win a national title with this roster?
I do think they could. I think they are that good. I think they're that well coached. I mean, they got 2 really good coordinators. Signetti has obviously done a masterful job in how he has built the roster, evaluated, and then how these guys execute. You know, if you ask me right now, I would give Ohio State a better chance to win the national title. But I definitely think with the level of that Mendoza's playing at, he makes enough plays with his legs. You know, they're pretty deep. You know, you see them lose Surratt and they come back, and you have a couple other guys step up. Omar Cooper's just been fantastic. Charlie Becker's been really good. They're really good on defense. They're a dangerous team. I would not be shocked if they won the national title. I wouldn't have thought that last year. I think this team is even better than that one. And you know, they're probably one of, I would say, about 6 teams that I think it wouldn't shock me if they ended up winning a national title.
I'm with you. I think this team could absolutely do it. I definitely think they're better than last year, particularly along that offensive line. I want to talk about Fernando Mendoza in just a bit because I want to get your take on the Heisman. But let's talk about another team, really 2 more teams in the Big Ten that are trying to get into that college football playoff bracket. Oregon would be there were the playoff to start, you know, based on the bracket this week. But they have a huge game, a home game against USC. It's pretty amazing to think, Bruce, kind of given the college football that you and I grew up following and covering and how great USC was. They've never been in the college football playoff. They're 2 wins away from almost certainly getting there. But now they got to go to Eugene and take down the Ducks. Just give people a sense of what this game means for USC and for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, it's kind of a fascinating dynamic because the USC fan base really in the last couple of years, I feel like, has checked out on Lincoln Riley, to be honest. And I think they were kind of over him. I mean, it was obviously a terrific first year with Caleb and Jordan Addison, and they came close to making the playoff. You know, remember Caleb got hurt his hamstring against Utah in the Pac-12 title game, I guess it is. But then it's just been some disappointment. And I think this year, the way I would say it, it felt like for a while it's been a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There was a good win against Michigan. 3rd-string running back King Miller, walk-on, comes in, and he really, you know, has a phenomenal day. And he's been a great story here. I think they're a really dangerous team because Jayden Maiava is playing really well, and they have 2 elite receivers. I think Mekhi Lemon, you know, he's right there with Jeremiah Smith in terms of, like, to me, the best receivers in the country. I think he's just an amazing kind of force who makes big plays whenever they need him to. The defense is better than it was a few years ago. It's still not that good. Like, they did give up over 300 yards on the ground to Notre Dame. Your alma mater, Northwestern, was running through them pretty easily, I felt like, in the first half of that Friday night game. They're, like I said, they're a little better. That was a nice win, how they came back in the rain and the elements last week against Iowa, especially in the second half. I think they showed something. Now it's like, can you win on the road? Can you beat an elite team on the road in a tough place? I think this is essentially a playoff elimination game.
Huh.
If USC wins it, I'm not guaranteeing they're going to beat UCLA, but I think that they probably will. And then I think they have a deserving case to be one of those. I think the Big Ten probably gets 3 teams in the playoff. And I think with a head-to-head and beating Oregon at Oregon, I think they would probably have a really strong argument to get in the playoff. If Oregon wins it, I think that they've got a good case that a 1 loss against a really good Indiana team. There's no shame in that, but I think this, and again, Oregon still has to play against Washington on the road. That's no cakewalk game, obviously, with DeMond Williams Jr. there. But I think this is essentially a playoff elimination game, and it's a huge game for Lincoln Riley because he does have a really good recruiting class on the hook for next year. There is some reasons for enthusiasm, and I think if they even 9-3 is better than a lot of people out here were expecting. I think they were expecting maybe 7-5, maybe at best 8-4. If they get to 10-2, that's a heck of a year, and it probably deserving a playoff spot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think there was some school of thought that you could kind of thread the needle and maybe end up with both of them in. It feels like maybe some things aren't falling that way, and you might need some upsets to have both of those teams make it at 10-2. To your point, I mean, if you want to ensure yourself of being in there, if you're Oregon, you probably best win this game. Again, as you said, with a big game against Washington looming as well. Before I let you go, I alluded to it. I do want to ask you about the Heisman Trophy. I mean, it's kind of amazing in the Big Ten that we haven't had a Heisman Trophy winner since Troy Smith in 2006. And now you have Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sand, and maybe to some extent Jeremiah Smith. I know Ohio State has obviously launched a Heisman campaign for him as well. I think it's tough to have a campaign for multiple players, but he is certainly fabulous. What do you think the odds are that one of those guys emerges winning the Heisman, and who do you think has the best chance of doing it?
I think the odds are really, really good that one of them is going to do it because, like the next 2 weeks or the next 2 games for both, obviously there's a Michigan-Ohio State game and it's a huge rivalry game. But I feel like it's going to probably come down to the Big Ten title game, right? Those guys are both putting up spectacular numbers. They've aced every test. Right now, like I would say I probably would lean towards Mendoza of the 2 of them. But what happens if Ohio State kind of shuts Mendoza down and they beat him, 28-17 or something, and Sand does what Sand does, which is complete 80% of his passes and is spot on with the ball. I'm sure Jeremiah Smith's going to be fine. He's got another year. Like, I do think he's the most outstanding player in college football. But it's as you said, I remember a long time ago, Miami, I think, had Ken Dorsey and Willis McGahee. Like, neither one was going to win. You could have guys go finish 3rd and 5th or something. It's just hard to have a winner, especially in the same region where you have another quarterback having an amazing year. As far as the SEC goes, like Ty Simpson is a candidate. I think Diego Pavia is a candidate. Marcel Reed's a candidate. But ultimately, I think most eyes are going to be on that Big Ten title game. And I feel like those guys right now have a leg up on the rest of the field.
It's just incredible to think what could be at stake in Indy that first weekend of December, right? I mean, you'd have the Big Ten championship on the line. You'd have the #1 seed in the college football playoff on the line and the Heisman Trophy as well. It is shaping up to be a great last few weeks here at the Big Ten. Bruce Feldman, Fox Sports, really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot, my friend. We'll see you soon.
Always a pleasure, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Saturday, Big Ten tailgate and countdown to kickoff. Get you ready for a spectacular day of Big Ten football. It is real and spectacular. We have a Big Ten Network triple header featuring a Wrigley Field game, Michigan's continued push toward the CFP, and Camp Randall under the lights. It all starts at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. A few more minutes here with Jake Butt. Always fun to watch Brett Bielema go back to Madison. Understand he downplays it, but had so much success up there with the Badgers. Now he brings an Illini team for a night game inside Camp Randall, an Illini team which is still in position to get to 10 wins. That means they would go back-to-back 10-win seasons, Jake. That's never been done before in Illinois program history. they certainly have something to play for, even if it's not the college football playoff.
Oh, I'm 100% with you, and I think that's probably the downside of the 12-team playoff is there's this illusion that if you don't make it, what a disappointing season. Wasn't a disappointing season for Illinois last year. That was an amazing season, and now a chance to do it 2 straight seasons would be even more exciting, and big opportunity for Luke Altmaier. I mean, he's winding down his career at Illinois. He's been outstanding, and with the way this Wisconsin defense is playing, this is going to be a big test on the road in Camp Randall. It's not easy. On the flip side, I really liked what I saw out of Carter Smith last week. Just for a true freshman to go on the road into Bloomington, I thought he did some really nice things, and I think the team is starting to rally around him a little bit. So interested to see what Jeff Grimes does offensively to continue to get a true freshman settled in against the Illinois defense.
And really playing not just for the end of this year, Jake, they're playing for next year. Luke Fickell knows he's back. Carter Smith will likely be the guy under center. So what does the offense look like next year? Because listen, Wisconsin's defense has been above average this year. They've been good enough to win a lot more games than the Badgers have actually won. So if you look ahead to 2026, you bring a large nucleus of that back and hope the offense is able to play a little bit better in 2026. Nebraska, Penn State. This is such an interesting game for Matt Rule with all his Penn State ties. What does Nebraska look like? Still TJ Lateef, obviously Raiola done for the year. But Penn State, after the win last week at Michigan State, they realized the year could extend into the postseason. You win this, you win the final against Rutgers, you get to 6.
Yeah, this is one of the games I'm most interested in watching this weekend.
Great
this
under
is just
the radar
a great
game.
matchup, exactly. A great football game. And specifically, I'm looking at TJ Lateef and the Husker offense against the Penn State defense. Remember the whole narrative when Raiola was under center is how many sacks they've taken? Well, Lateef hasn't taken a sack since he was named the starter, and a big reason why is his legs. It's no doubt what Penn State's going to do defensively with Jim Knowles. They're going to send pressure. What does a freshman quarterback in TJ Lateef do on the road to combat that pressure? And of course, Emmett Johnson is going to be a big piece of that, not just on the ground, but in the screen game. I believe he's their 3rd leading receiver as well.
Emmett Johnson's been one of the best backs in the country. Trouble for the Nebraska defense is that Penn State's Katron Allen has also been one of the best backs in the country.
And the trouble for Nebraska's defense is they're great against the pass, not so much against the run. So, little fun matchup game this
Allen's
weekend.
been really good this year in what has been a disappointing season for Penn State, really emerging. He and Nick Singleton shared carries their first 3 years this year. While Singleton has had some moments, 2025 has belonged to Katron Allen. I'm guessing they will try to do exactly that against that porous Nebraska run defense coming up this Saturday night. Finally, Washington, UCLA. Washington in a similar situation to Illinois because the playoff was out there for a while, not now unless chaos completely ensues and takes over college football, but still 10 wins on the table. It'd be tough. You have to beat UCLA, you got to beat Oregon next week and win a bowl game, but the Oregon game is at home, and you are favored on the road this week against UCLA.
I think Washington has been the most overlooked team all season long by the AP.
You've been saying that for a long time.
And I know the Wisconsin loss, like that was a tough loss, especially considering, had they won, we were talking about them as a playoff push. But, the other 2 losses against Ohio State and Michigan, those are quality losses, if you want to say that. But now to your point, an opportunity, you're talking about maybe getting to 10 wins, right? You beat your rival at home potentially, but it all starts this weekend. We know UCLA has been a dangerous team. They've been playing inspired football for Washington. It's all hands on deck. Play a clean game, and then let's see what happens next week against your rival.
And I think the UCLA coaching situation is fascinating. There doesn't seem to be a real natural fit right now. You ask around, and there's a million names, but not one that everybody wants to go after. Who knows? Tim Skipper beats Washington. You beat USC next week. I think you throw your name in the hat to be the permanent head coach.
Yeah, I mean, has to at least be considered because let's not forget this team was just left out to dry. I mean, no one expected them to win a game, and then they go on the run. But most importantly, he's got that locker room completely bought in. They are aligned in a really challenging position. That is a ton of credit to Tim Skipper's leadership.
Just 2 weekends left in college football's regular season. This Saturday, next, and then, of course, the Big Ten championship game, first week of December, as Indiana and Ohio State continue on what appears to be a collision course. For Jake Butt, I'm Rick Pizzo. As always, thanks for the hang with us here on Big Ten Today.